All right. Well, I don't think we know who's who either, so we'll have to ask the audience.
All right, as we get started, let's just start with a show of hands. How many people were here in 2013 at the Bitcoin conference? All right, how many people were here in 2015? All right, how many people were here in 2019? Woo. How many people were here in 2020? Oh, just kidding. All right, so Cameron and Tyler, you guys were some of the earliest investors in Bitcoin. And I've publicly said it before, I think that you guys are going to end up being some of the best investors in the world. And the reason being that you had such deep conviction to go and put a sizable amount of money, right? Most people who found Bitcoin, they either didn't have a lot of capital or they didn't have the ability to go and buy millions of dollars of Bitcoin. Why have you guys held on this entire time? There's been volatility, all this stuff. Like, what has kept you guys so convicted since the very early days until today?
So we still think it's really early. We think Bitcoin's gold 2.0. It will disrupt gold, so its market cap has to be 10 trillion or more, because that's the market cap of gold. So Bitcoin's hovering around 1 trillion now. We still think it's at least conservatively a 10x from here. So even at 35,000, it feels like a really good buying opportunity long term, because we think at a $10 trillion market cap, we think one Bitcoin will be worth $500,000, and we think that could happen inside this decade, definitely the next 5 years. So we're hodlers at least until $500,000, and then at that point, you won't even have to sell because you can borrow off it or whatever.
Right. Yeah, the thesis hasn't really played out yet. We're like 1/12 of the way there. And when we wrote that thought piece in August, Bitcoin was at 13,000. It hit, I think, 64.
That was this August.
This August, you know. So the story's really just playing out. It's just getting started.
And when we came to, so we keynoted Bitcoin 2013. The price of Bitcoin was $130. I think the market cap was under 3 billion.
3 billion market cap. That's like a small, you know, shitcoin today.
Yeah. So, you know, we've seen this, but yeah, like Cameron said, our gold 2.0 thesis is that Bitcoin disrupts gold, and we think that's the conservative bull case. Obviously, Bitcoin's a lot more than gold. It's an open source project that continues to evolve and can do so much more. It can become the global reserve digital currency of the world, of the galaxy. Like, when we get to Mars, what's the currency going to be on Mars? It's going to be dollars? No, it's going to be Bitcoin.
One of the things that's really fascinating about the gold comparison is most people hold that $10 trillion kind of threshold as that's the market cap of gold. But what we've actually seen is that gold's market cap is likely to contract as Bitcoin's grows, right? And so there's a chance that actually the kind of flippening of gold and Bitcoin happens somewhere sub 10 trillion gold. And so to your guys' point, like, that likely happens in this decade if the Bitcoin thesis plays out.
Yeah, and that's like small bull case, right? Like, Bitcoin is software, gold is hardware. You can do so much more with software and iterate at such a faster clip. So I think 10 trillion is sort of like the conservative bull scenario. Gold likely contracts over the next 25 years. You put a probe on an asteroid with trillions of dollars of gold. I mean, there's so much gold in this universe. It's plentiful, like sand. Just on this planet, it's a little bit more scarce.
It's scarce, not fixed. And a lot of people don't understand that. Bitcoin's the only fixed asset that I know of in the world, in the galaxy. It's the hardest, soundest money we've ever known. 2/3 of the gold supply has been mined since 1950. So as the price for gold goes up, people find ways to mine it. It becomes more profitable. Technology breakthroughs. Think of what's happening with natural gas in the U.S. with fracking. Now we're a natural exporter. Those breakthroughs can happen with gold.
We're an oil exporter, and in 2000s they thought peak oil in the U.S. had happened, and now we export, and we have
no technological breakthrough can change the supply of Bitcoin.
It does not expand with an increase of demand or technology. It just doesn't happen. There's no commodity like that ever. First of its kind.
So in 2013, when you guys came to the first Bitcoin conference and you were the keynote, what was that like? How many people were there? Did you guys feel like maybe we're crazy? Like, what were you thinking?
I would say there'd maybe be like this row. And that was it.
There was like a few hundred people in the entire conference, booths, convention center combined. So it wouldn't even come close to filling up this room. Maybe, like Cameron said, the first row. I mean, we thought it was crazy not to be there. We sort of know this is the biggest secret, best kept secret in the world
Hiding
that
in plain
nobody
sight.
is talking about. But like, this is always going to happen. We always thought that sitting here on this stage with 20,000 people coming to Miami was always a when, not an if. And so.
And today it's like bigger than a Comic-Con. I mean, talk about mainstreaming and global and everything. But back then, there was no license in the US. 95% of the volume was going through Mt. Gox, which was a magic card exchange that pivoted into Bitcoin in Tokyo. We bought a lot of Bitcoin there. Then we built our own cold storage system and flew around the country and stored it in safety deposit boxes. And we wanted to like build Gemini to sort of make it easier to buy, sell, and store Bitcoin and give access, like an on-ramp. But there was no license. The CFTC hadn't opined. The SEC hadn't opined. There's no New York, trust company licenses.
The IRS
IRS
given
hadn't-
guidance. So it was a complete question mark. Is Bitcoin going to be outlawed in the US? What is Bitcoin? Thankfully, Bitcoin's considered a commodity like gold through an enforcement action by the CFTC called the coin flip action, which has been upheld by the courts. But there was no precedent. There was a big question
And that
mark.
came 2 years later in 2015. So it wasn't like around the corner. It was like years later where some of this guidance and clarity came about. And the hardest thing when we were starting Gemini was getting a bank relationship. That was one of the biggest challenges. And we went to store some of our private keys in banks. They actually rejected us because they saw our name and they saw Bitcoin and they said, oh, we don't want any of that. So we had to kind of like break in a little bit, like a reverse bank heist, so you can store your stuff in a bank vault. Kind of ironic, and that's actually chronicled pretty well in the Bitcoin Billionaires book, which talks about that.
So, yeah, it was just completely unknown. It's amazing how far we've come. You know, we have legal jurisdiction around Bitcoin. We understand it's money. Courts say it's money. It's like gold. So much has happened, and the infrastructure that's been built. You know, you can go to reliable exchanges and buy this stuff. You can get, Ledger Nano wallets and all these great things that just didn't exist in our experience buying Bitcoin early on.
I think what's so interesting about you guys is you have a infrastructure that you built after that 2013 conference, right, to service a lot of your own needs. You've now brought it to retail and institutional investors. Talk a little bit about, over the last year or so, there's obviously been incredible kind of macroeconomic chaos, uncertainty, and manipulation. What are you hearing in the circles of friends or executives that maybe people here wouldn't be privy to? Like, what are the things that people are saying behind closed doors, either positive or negative about the space, and why are so many billionaires and family offices and large institutions now coming in?
Yeah. So the biggest skeptics in the world, dyed-in-the-wool Wall Streeters, all came running back to Bitcoin during the pandemic as soon as when the markets melted for about that week, and then people kind of got above water. People saw what was happening with the US dollar. They can do simple math at the Fed's balance sheet. They see it ballooning. They see the stimulus, and they know what's been happening even up to the pandemic. We've been on the turbo button, printing, debt piling up. We got to smash the turbo button to get through the pandemic or the lockdown. So the gold 2.0 story really resonated. The hedge against inflation. Bitcoin is the world's best hedge against inflation. It's the hardest, soundest money. It's better, it's harder than gold. And so all of those folks that would have been calling Bitcoin a fraud, skeptical, oh, I'm not really into technology, I don't get it, they saw what was happening with fiat regimes. The US dollar is the ultimate shitcoin, like the euro. Everything will fit.
Bitcoin's biggest booster is the Fed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to show your shirt?
Yep. Let's rage against the machine. Right?
So yeah, Bitcoin's been having trillion-dollar advertisements. You know, the Fed is the biggest champion, and so
Is Bitcoin the only free market left? Right?
Maybe.
If you think about the stock market, if you think about all of these markets that people historically looked at.
Bitcoin's never needed a bailout.
It's organic money. It's not fiat. There's no government law or decree saying you have to use it. So the people who choose Bitcoin, they choose it out of free will because they want it.
And you can't get stopped out of Bitcoin. The blockchain doesn't call the broker and say stop trading GameStop or whatever. Right. So we saw with the GameStop saga. So it's a level, freer, democratic playing field. And so what was really happening in the US dollar, the fiat regimes during the lockdowns, push people a deluge into to Bitcoin and some sort of shelter from the oncoming flood and scourge of inflation, which has been all around us. It's washing all around. I mean, look at asset prices. People who measure CPI, the price of a bar of soap, like, that's such BS. Like, it's been here for a long time, and it's only coming worse. And
CPI isn't really a great measure of inflation.
Well, my whole thing has always been the Federal Reserve and other people in the macro economy will literally talk about the official CPI, and then they'll reference an unofficial number.
Yeah, right.
It's like, wait a second.
It's
Like,
as your public position and then your private position.
As the stock market rips during a lockdown, as real estate prices continue to break records.
Small businesses get destroyed, but yet there's no,
Talk a little bit about Gemini and a number of other players in the market have really built financial products around Bitcoin now, right? So it used to just be you could buy Bitcoin, hold it, and that's kind of all it would do. Now there's everything from lending against it, there's earning it, right? There's all kinds of cards that are coming out, et cetera. Just talk about, like, is this good, is this bad? How do you guys think about the kind of the financialization that's happening around the asset?
I think it creates like greater price discovery, and the fact that you can come to Gemini earn 2% while you hodl your Bitcoin is amazing, because you can't get anything like that from a bank in the traditional system. And then we're really excited about the Gemini credit card, which is launching very soon. We have over like 250,000 people on the wait list, and you can earn Bitcoin rewards while using that card in your general spending behavior. We think it's a great like individual empowerment thing. You're already doing this behavior, and now you can like invest in the future of money and hodl and not earn silly, flimsy airline miles or whatever. So we think it's going to be a really mainstreaming moment, because people don't have to think about when they buy Bitcoin. It takes sort of the timing piece out of it, because a lot of people say, well, when do I buy? And it's like, if you don't have to time that, it's really helpful. I think it's going to be like the AOL CD-ROMs or discs that were in all the magazines back in the 90s that onboarded millions of people onto the internet. I think a credit card's a really great access point to get into the space.
And imagine you buy, let's say, a flat screen TV. You earn 3% back in Bitcoin. One day, that Bitcoin that you earn back might be worth more than the TV itself. Airline miles aren't going to do that, right? Points from whatever other credit cards, it's a complete black box. What are the exchange rates? Just gimmicks, right? But at least you have a chance with Bitcoin to actually get, it turns spending into investing, which is just a no-brainer. I'm going to do this all day long. You know, why would you not stack sats as you spend your US dollar shitcoin?
Speaking of stats, how important do you think it is talking about Bitcoin and denominating everything in Bitcoin versus Satoshis? And like, how do you guys think about that from a pricing standpoint across your products or in the market? Is that something that you think is important, or maybe not so much?
So a lot of people don't realize you don't have to buy just one Bitcoin. Like literally.
You can buy a fraction of a Bitcoin, everyone.
Yeah. You can come to Gemini and buy $5 worth of Bitcoin or a fraction, but a lot of people say, oh, it's $35,000, I'll never afford it. It's like you can buy a very, very small piece. And a fun fact, there's 46 million millionaires on the planet. It's only 21 million Bitcoins, so they won't own a Bitcoin. So if you own a Bitcoin today, you will be a millionaire in the future, for sure. Congratulations.
You guys are really buying favor with the audience, telling them that.
Yeah. I know how to win them over.
And so, looking forward, what are you most excited about around Bitcoin? Is it some of the layer 2 stuff? Is it kind of more people coming in and buying it? Just what gets you guys excited about the future of Bitcoin?
So one other thing is, I think I looked at, there's 32 companies that have Bitcoin on its back. There's 40,000, about 40, 50,000 publicly traded companies globally on global exchanges, right? 32 of them have Bitcoin on their balance sheet. Square, MicroStrategy, Tesla, only 32. Do we think that number is going down or going up, right? What happens when that number is 500, 100,000, 10,000? What does that do to the price of Bitcoin? It's not even it's like the second pitch of the first inning, in terms of when you think of where this thing can go. And then when the companies all have Bitcoin on their balance sheet, then a central bank's going to fall, because they have gold on their balance sheet, right? They do that because they know what they're doing by printing money. Right. They stack gold. They're just going to start stacking Bitcoin. So
don't watch what they say, watch what they do. And they're stacking gold because that's what they know how to do, right? But they will stack.
But you're going to have more companies doing this. You're going to have central banks. You're going to have, countries.
Is it just time? Is that all it takes for more companies and eventually countries?
I think a lot of it is time. And then continuing what happens with the debt loads and the fiat regimes, that's making it very easy Bitcoin for Bitcoin.
Yeah. And when you guys think about Bitcoin developers, I know you've done a lot in terms of supporting Bitcoin developers, and a lot of actually what you've done is kind of behind the scenes in terms of supporting the ecosystem.
Right.
Maybe just talk about like the efforts there and kind of why that's so important to you.
So yeah, without Bitcoin core development, we don't get anywhere, right? If we don't secure the network, we don't scale it, we don't make it more sustainable, then it doesn't matter what we do. So it's very important to support and give back. We started the Gemini Opportunity Fund to support those efforts, and we're really excited about that.
And I think we've sponsored now 3 core devs, and we just started it last fall. We were on Peter McCormick's podcast. He sort of
Did Peter strong-arm you?
he kind of guilted us to do a little bit, but he was absolutely right.
Imagine what happens when you come on the best podcast rather than the second best.
Yeah.
It's going to be expensive.
You start paying us, right? But no, it's great. We're very thankful for Peter to have done that, because it's great to give back.
And we've given, I think, 1.5 million we've committed to date to that. So
Got it.
And we'll keep going.
And then, before we go to finish up, maybe talk a little bit about the Gemini platform itself. Kind of what are you seeing over 2021 in terms of users? What products are they really kind of flocking to? Are there certain things that they're interested in? Just like, what are you guys actually seeing happen on the platform? Because it feels like the conversation has really gravitated towards the institutions, Elon Musk tweeting and kind of all that. But what is the retail user still doing?
Well, this has always been a retail-driven phenomenon from day one. Banks don't know how to get their head around it. Their compliance office okay with it. So like Wall Street's still not even there really, but it's really been a movement of the people.
it's all about the individual and empowering the individual. And that's why we started Gemini, to build simple, safe, reliable products to empower people to get into crypto.
Right.
And it still is an individual movement. It's everybody in this room. It's not like a nameless organization or faceless organization. It's really all of you.
Right. So we've seen that in just the new baseline, the level of support for Bitcoin, the understanding, the people in it. It's incredible. I mean, 2017 was an interesting year. It was kind of exciting. This is an order of magnitude bigger, more substantial. And even if there's a correction or another crypto winter or whatever, because things can get overexcited, like it's just going to be a completely different market and baseline. So we're really excited, and that's going to happen again into the next halvening. And the US dollar is going to keep getting printed at the same time.
Right.
So, we think it's super early days. We've never been more bullish. And like we said, like we think there's at least a 10x from here in terms of price appreciation for Bitcoin, and very likely much more.
Yeah. For those that are in the audience, what can they do to kind of further the Bitcoin mission or kind of this movement of global adoption? Are there specific things that you guys suggest to people that they can do themselves?
I think continuing to tell our story, right, around Bitcoin being a freedom fighter and the most powerful thing for personal freedom since like the personal computer and the internet and the printing press. It's really amazing. And I think we just need to keep telling that story and fighting the FUD. And I think Bitcoin could be the impetus for a huge renaissance in renewables. And it really, we need to tell that story more. And so I think that's really important.
Right. Totally. I mean, we could be on typewriters. It's more green than smartphones, but like we understand the value there, how important it is to our freedom, like the printing press, the personal computer, the early open internet. So this is super important and meaningful stuff.
All right, I got one question left. You guys don't know I'm going to ask this, but you guys got a lot of Bitcoin. Do you still like stack sats and dollar cost average, or like now we're good?
Well, we're going to use the Gemini credit card and stuff. We're not dummies. You can never have enough Bitcoin. We wish we bought earlier. We wish we bought more. Everybody says that no matter how much you have. So, and we'll look back on today like it was so early. I wish I bought at 35,000 or whatever. So it's super early days. It's maybe like the late 90s of the internet, but now you can own a piece of the internet. You don't have to pick the racehorse necessarily.
Yeah.
So just own a piece of Bitcoin, and it's going to work out.
Awesome. Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Whatever. We go.